Tiffany Markman, I'm very happy to have you here. I want to start with the immediate thing that you think you could teach people for real. What would be that golden nugget we could kick off with?
Anyone can write content, even and especially non-writers, but the planning is more important than the writing.
I want you to break that down for me, because you and I both spend an enormous amount of time working with lots of companies. We see their content strategies and the execution thereof on a daily basis. I feel it's absolutely piss poor. Am I correct in my analysis? And why, if so, why do you think that is?
I wouldn't say piss poor, I'd say largely bullshit. I feel like that's stronger and more, But I think that's because for many years content's been the soft stuff. It's the sort of last minute half-assed thing we do when the market's quiet, or when there's a pandemic and we don't know how else to respond, or when we have a whole lot of young interns and we don't really know what to do with them. And I think the companies and brands that are getting content marketing right are, number one, those that don't take it too seriously, but those that take it just seriously enough to plan for it properly so that it's strategic, so that it hits objectives, but also so that it's about adding value, not just talking shit.
I want to get into planning, but before that, the way I think of content is that it's a means to an end. What we're doing is we're creating this content to build brand equity. Obviously, it's part of a broader marketing and advertising thinking, and we're ultimately wanting to boost sales in businesses and make people feel a certain way about us. So it's almost like we isolate these things when actually there's a very strong reason why all companies and people should take it very seriously. So why do you think that people are fully seeing that link? Because the way I'm thinking about it is that all companies have a sales and marketing issue. What would they do with double their market share? And how do they get that? Obviously, they have to be very good at what they do, but they have to get people to see what they do.
So the first thing to bear in mind, I think, is that content marketing is not a short-term game. It's a medium to long-term game. And so you're building credibility and authenticity and trust over time. You're not going to see any meaningful change from a 3-month half-ass effort. It's credibility and trust and familiarity that is built through being consistent. Having said that, what tends to resonate most with the market, whoever your market might be, is content that stands out, because there's a lot of noise out there. And what stands out at the moment in 2022, post-pandemic, subprime mortgage crisis in the States and recession, etc., is authenticity, rawness, vulnerability, surprisingly random human stories, micro detail. And a lot of companies and brands are scared to go there because there's risk, but also because they feel that's not how their brands would speak. And so I think actually that when we come to terms with the fact that our brand should speak like humans, always, because they're speaking to humans about human things, then what happens is we've demystified the scary language we think content needs. So we've done away with that. And then we realize that actually all we need to do is just add value relentlessly, not promote. So I think I should probably start by saying that content marketing is not promotional. It's not there to sell. It's there to share your knowledge for free so that ultimately you get paid for your expertise.
I think this is where companies might struggle, though, because now they don't understand the role that content plays, which is what you just nailed. And so then they bring in all these metrics like, what's our ROI? And then they don't lengthen the time frame to measure and analyze that ROI. But although I think ROI, of course, in the long term is important, but in the short term, it's the death of content, which is why then content seems to gravitate back toward promotional marketing and advertising. Now, I've learned so much from you. We've been spending an enormous amount of time together here at the Tryst. You've been based here for a few months, and I really have learned so much from you, even though I'm in this game. And it's why I wanted to sit down with you. So I want to get into this planning part. If we can recognize that content is absolutely vital to a business and a brand, and it matters in the sales and marketing scope. Talk to me about planning. What are you seeing in the market? What are the do's, the don'ts, and everything in between?
I'm seeing across the board not enough time spent planning and too much time spent writing. And I say writing, but what I really mean is information gathering and crafting and fiddling. And actually the ratios are off, because we do the same thing with planning that we do with content. We make it out to be this mystical unicorn, but actually it's just, what is the one message and why am I sending that message out into the universe, and who am I sending it to? That's basically your plan. And if you can't answer those questions quick, then you're not ready to communicate. So we need to take away the glorification of scary project management and just realize that each and every message has to have an objective, a very well-defined audience, and then just a bit of nuance, right? So planning is not, this ephemeral thing. It's a quick question and a couple of honest answers. That's the first thing. The second thing is that because social media is a kind of immediate world in which content is shared in a very fluid, quick way, the deadlines are weird, and everything's urgent, and everything's reactive and responsive and guerrilla and viral and all of that stuff. So we spend too much time in the writing phase and not enough time in the prep phase. My rule is usually 40, 20, I've got to make sure that my maths works, 40, 20, 10, 10. Does that add up? No, it doesn't. That's 80. That's why I'm a writer, not an accountant. So let me just rearrange the maths a bit there. So let's say that I have 10 minutes to write something, for argument's sake. I'm going to spend at least 5 of those 10 minutes, so at least half my time on the planning stage, which leaves me with 5. I'm going to spend probably 3 on the writing, which leaves me with 2, and I'm going to spend 2 on the checking.
Now, how do you parlay that back to bigger businesses? Because you and I sit in a space where we both the decision makers, and we content focused, and we can move quickly. How do you advise bigger companies that have all these structures, and in order to post anything out, it has to be vetted by 32 people? Because in my mind, that clearly doesn't line up to the way these mediums work. So what do you say to bigger businesses with bigger structures?
I've got 2 answers for you. The cheeky one is hire me to do brand voice, and then you'll have a report that explains exactly what everyone should do. But the less cheeky answer is streamline the sign-off process as much as possible so that there are more people you trust with your messaging than people that you would trust with the keys to the castle. Just because someone is extremely senior in your leadership doesn't mean that that's the bare minimum for sign-off, because you're going to have a mid-level marketing person who's just as savvy about what will resonate and what won't. So, be selective about where sign-off sits. The minute you build multiple layers into the sign-off process and you have sign-off by committee, you can be less responsive, you can be less proactive, and everything's just mediocre. Yep. But I think really the best way to achieve happy metrics of lots of planning, solid time writing, and then let's not forget to check and sanity check, and diversity check, and inclusion check, and offense check, is allow your teams the opportunity and the time they need to plan. When you make unrealistic requests of your content team, they're going to deliver shit.
I mean, I think that's why we have jobs, to your point, because I don't think they're very good at it.
Some are. I mean, there are pockets of excellence.
I think they're few and far between. Do you think that?
I think that there are little content geniuses in most businesses who are not necessarily the people able to contribute content. They need to be dug out and
because
used.
They're not trusted.
Because they're not trusted, and because there are multiple layers of sign-off, and because the powers that be are scared of the tone of voice. But I mean, half an hour of training, and you can, or an hour of training, and you can. So there are little geniuses in all businesses that are not being leveraged. It's just social media, for example, is just being given to the youngest person. That's dumb, right? But I also think that we remember the really great stuff. Like, I'm going to just give a shout out to Discovery because I can. Discovery, Vitality Travel. Kalula went bang, and all those flights were cancelled. And I knew about it from Discovery before the news, because they emailed me to say, if you have a flight, here's the number of the person to phone. Now, I'm not normally a rabid fan of big business, but I will say that when you give a shit about your audience enough to make sure that they've heard about it from you and know what to do before ENCA is reporting it, well, that's content marketing. They weren't panic-stricken about sign-off, because whoever put that out was trusted enough to have the authority to let it go.
I'm all for shouting out when big businesses do it well, because I'm generally shitting on them when they do it poorly. And I believe excellence should be celebrated. Do you then think that most big businesses, and I'm generalizing, are too parat? They're too scared to put one foot out in case something, there's been these pockets over the years where
Cancelled.
being cancelled for something that went out like, anyways, it's not worth mentioning. We all have an example in our heads right now of big brands. And so do you think that those instances have made them so scared to be on the edge more regularly?
I think I must be sensitive, and I think you and I, as self-employed, small business owners, must be sensitive to the compliance risks and governance risks and reputational risks faced by big business that we don't ever have to worry about. You and I can basically do whatever the hell we want, right? So, no shareholders, no listing on the JSE. We can pretty much do whatever we like. So we operate with a kind of freedom and irreverence that is suitable to a small business. Having said that, I think that we can't say that large business is too parat. I just think they take themselves too seriously when it comes to content marketing. So they may not take themselves too seriously when it comes to investor relations and ESG goals and all of that. But content marketing is a human phenomenon. It is not a billboard.
Yes.
It is not a TV ad. It is not a radio commercial.
Yeah.
It is pretty much the most direct way we have to communicate with each other publicly and often. And so if you change the rules around how you communicate, because it's content marketing, then you are able to be much more accessible and you resonate better with your audience and you can get away with more and you can take more chances because the rules are different. We can't apply traditional PR rules to content marketing. It's not the same baby.
So what I'm getting from you then, I totally agree with you, is that the rules have changed and we first just at a base level have to acknowledge that that digital content creation, as an example, is not the yesteryear of advertising and marketing. You can't format your old billboard ads into this social media realm, for example, and then think it's going to work. They play by different rules.
Yeah.
I want to go back a step. There are two directions I want to go in. First, I want to get to know Tiffany a little bit, and then I want to kind of close off with your endless supply of wisdom around content creation. What drew you to this world in the first place? If I go to young Tiffany, when you look back with hindsight, how do you see that your path veered into this world of content creation and creativity? Was it just always in you and you couldn't help but get yourself to a laptop or a computer or a journal where you
Mark,
wrote?
laptops didn't exist when I was a child. Let's just
it wasn't 29th birthday, just the
nice.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
What is the catalyst for you moving into this world as young Tiffany?
So I'd love to give you a whole sexy story about, I had an apple hit me on the head while sitting under a tree on my grandfather's farm. That didn't happen. In actual fact, I'm an only child, and only children have to very often make their own fun when the adults are busy. And so when I was 3, I was sitting on the hideous yellow linoleum floor of my grandmother's kitchen in Port Elizabeth. And I was bored because she was baking bran muffins, which I like as an adult, but as a 3-year-old, ugh. And I said to her, Gran, please yeed to me. And she said, no, you must yeed to yourself. And I said, but I'm 3, I'm free. I can't yeed. And this is family folklore, but what happened was I started reading whatever I could get my hands on, which at the time, I'm embarrassed to say, was cookbooks, the Bible, the Old Testament, I'm Jewish, not the new one, and a lot of Aesop's fables. And so I taught myself to read. I still have a massive affinity for those cake baking books that you get for kids' parties, the 1 and the 2 and the Barbie. So I started by reading those. And then I developed what I can only call chronic fear of being without books. And I think that's really, books and reading and words became a comfort zone. Then I realized that I could make my own. I also realized that you get massive kudos in primary school if you can string together a reasonably eloquent sentence. They think that you are God. So I used that as much as possible. And then writing was always a fun thing. And it was always something I did that because I was good at it. So I like to do things I'm good at. I don't like to do things I'm bad at. So I'll only do something if I can, smash it. But in matric, I was already a big English nerd, and anyone who's known me for any period of time will know that I'm a bookworm. In matric, a friend of my mom's came to me and said, I'm a printer and I have to print this big job for a massive ad agency tomorrow. We're going to print tomorrow. And it's the worst piece of shit I've ever read in my whole life. And your mom says that you're quite good at English. Can you just look at this thing? So I did. I think I charged him 300 Rand. This was 1998. I worked through the night. I skipped double maths the next morning because I was finished. But I rewrote the whole thing because it genuinely was shitty. And I'm not gonna name and shame the agency, which still exists. But it was like truly dire. You can see that somebody had just chucked it at an intern and said, So I rewrote the copy, supplied it to this guy, and it ran on SAA for 7 years.
Wow.
This piece of content. And I thought, shit, I don't know, you could make money from this. So I went into journalism because I liked the subjects. I had no intention of being a journalist. Journalists were poorly paid in 1999, and they still are. In fact, they paid what they were currently in 1999. But I figured that maybe publishing might be the way to go, and then I fell in love with politics by accident. So I did an undergrad and postgrad degree in international political risk analysis. And then the same guy, the printer, had started a publishing company while I was at varsity. And so he offered me my first job, and I became the assistant editor of that company, and then the editor left, and I became the editor, and I was 24.
Wow.
And then I went on my own the following year. And this is the only thing I know how to do exceptionally well. And as I said, I like doing things I'm good at. So.
And here we are on your 29th birthday. Cool. So, can you be amazing and shit hot at something if you're not obsessed about it? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, think about all the beautiful people who are assholes. Right?
Oh, well, but you're given that.
So.
Can you be, but I'm talking excellent at a skill-based thing.
It depends how good everyone else is. How do you define excellent?
Fair question.
I think that it really helps. But also it makes your life effortless. The fact that I earn a living from doing my work is alarming. The fact that I can do this every day and actually make money like that, it's bizarre. I often say, and I guess the way to emphasize this is to admit that now I'm putting it in a video, but I often say to my clients, I would do this work for you for free because I love doing it so much, but I'm not going to.
Yes.
And that's the thing, yay, I make money from doing this thing. But I'm very conscious that as I say that, not everyone is a passionate writer. A lot of people feel massive anxiety around producing written work. And a lot of those people are in comms or marketing or social media or community management and so I want to those people to say, to you, those people, that you don't have to worry about using your right brain to write for business, to write for content marketing. Just use your left brain, the logical one, the same one that you use to calculate the tip on a bill in a restaurant. It's that brain that we want for content marketing. You don't have to be a poet. You don't have to write novels. And the minute you eliminate that pressure, you suddenly realize that what you're doing is talking to other humans about human stuff. Meaningful eye contact, etc. Right, good.
Okay, so as we close off the video, I want to give a fair portion to this, which is, run me through a scenario. I am a small business. I'm not Mark and have the trust. I come to you, or a big business, and I'm like, geez, Tiff, I really need help with my content because something's going off here. And before you actually might do the work, I'm trying to glean from your wisdom here. The best tips that you have around, because you're doing this talk, and you've been doing this talk called Content is King. I don't know if you add the other part, but not when it's cuck, but I love that. So
I didn't use that in New York, it wouldn't have landed.
Yes,
yeah.
But on that note, you literally got paid to go to New York to share this wisdom.
I didn't get paid, Mark.
Didn't you?
No, I got invited and subsidized and comped.
That's what I mean. I thought you didn't do it on your own cost. They brought you there and they asked you to do that. But so Run me through some of your wisdom. I mean, you're doing the talk, so we don't want to give it away when they should come and hear you in person and do it, wherever you do it. But to summarize these things, what do you mean when you say content is king, but not when it's cuck? And run me through it.
So I am going to say this at the talk, so I'll give away this little spoiler now. So when I wrote Content is King, which is the South African title, it's not the one I used at the conference, it occurred to me that I hadn't answered who Queen was. And people are saying, is engagement the Queen? No, engagement is the treasury. The Queen is resonating. So content is just talking out into the universe, but you've really nailed it when it resonates with someone enough to nudge them towards some kind of action. And engagement is the treasury. It's the vanity metric that we use to check that stuff is working. But if I were to talk to a small business owner or a big business owner, or anyone, even a one-person entity, my first question would be, what are the human resources that you have access to inside your business or inside your life that can contribute to the content repository, number one. So who are they? What are their current skills? Where do you think the gaps might be? What are you most anxious about? What do you think is going to work? What do you think is not going to work? That's question number one. Question number two is, what is your brand voice? Do you know? And if you don't know, get me to help you. Or just stop to think about the language that your brand speaks when it writes and talks.
If your brand was a human, how would it sound?
Exactly. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, what are you hoping to get out of content marketing? Like, are you doing it the way I do it, which is to educate and to teach and to share knowledge, because that translates into work, and because I like being the boss and having the final say, obs. Or are you doing it because you want to convert suspects into prospects? Or are you doing it because you want to convert prospects into clients? Or are you doing it to become a thought leader? You know, what is the... Yes. Because that determines where you publish, what you publish, how often you publish, who you speak to. And I guess the fourth question is, how brave are you willing to be? A lot of clients, especially big corporates, will say to me, you've got to go balls to the wall with this campaign. We want something out of the box. We want something. And the minute they say out of the box, I know that means we want the same shit everyone else has, because it's safe, but slightly different. Like, how brave are you willing to be? How badly do you want to stand out, or do you not really want to stand out? Or like, what is your appetite for tonal risk? And be honest with yourself, client, and be honest with me, the writer, or the content team. Because don't say balls to the wall, and then we have to like rein it back in, you know, like a runaway pony, because you didn't want balls to the wall at all, you know. And then, I guess if I have to sort of end off with one cracker, it's no one gives a shit about your content unless it adds measurable value to their lives. So stop talking about how great you are and your customer-centric service and your excellent transparency and your superb integrity and all your other bullshit, and actually give people information that they can use in their work and personal lives to make their lives better, to be more efficient, to save money, whatever it is, to be happier. But give them practical stuff. Don't make them work for it.
But where's the ROI, Tiffany?
Am I allowed to say fuck ROI? No, I won't say that.
But there is an element of that.
No, you have to have ROI. You have to, but it comes at the end.
Yes.
Not at the beginning.
Yes. And so it's back to front.
It's back to front. You've got to wait for ROI. You've got to take chances for marketing ROI. And actually, we're not asking you to spend 250K on a TV commercial, like that's going to flight before carte blanche or whatever. We're asking you to put a couple of articles on the internet. Like, it's not, you know, the financial risk is not that onerous that you need to know the ROI going in. Look at your metrics, take measurement seriously, but if you're obsessed with ROI, you're going to be too scared to do anything, and you're going to dilute everything.
And then someone else is going to come eat your lunch because they're not looking at it in the short term and doing it in the long term. You
know, lunch is getting eaten by all the brave companies. In America, look at Warby Parker, the spectacle brand. Some of the best copy I've ever seen. My Bus in America also, great copy. I got to say that South African copy tends to be much more interesting and funny than what we see in the global north. I think the creativity here is pretty shit hot, but you've got to let those creatives.
Yeah, but it has to be unleashed.
Yeah.
I mean, I so agree with you, and everything you've spoken to refers back to the planning phase. These are such valuable questions, and it shows you that content creation, if content is king, it's much more a mindset thing first, which leads to planning, which you have to have the right mindset for. You have to understand the new rules. You have to be willing to be brave if you're wanting to, and you have to understand what that means, and you have to understand how this system, this structure is different. And so I think that in South Africa you will see people, especially the bigger businesses, come along being dragged by force because other people are eating their lunch. But definitely smaller businesses and the real creatives have just done some incredible work. So I agree with you about South Africa. My last question, and then I want to leave you with a call to action to the audience, is how do you teach bigger businesses and small to be interesting? Because there is value, right? There is creating value. I could read a book out on a video and the content itself would be valuable, but you'd be bored to death within 30 seconds. So I kind of feel we enter into this triangle of content has to be world class, entertainment has to be world class because that's what you're kind of doing now. And then the production of whatever you're putting out has to be good. You can't have spelling errors or the video that what we're doing here with multiple camera angles and good lighting does matter to a degree. So how do you teach? We can solve for two of them. How do you teach companies to be funny and entertaining and interesting? How would you go about it?
I don't think companies should I don't think funny is a goal.
Yes.
Some companies are just unfunny.
Yes.
And some people are just unfunny. Humor is not an objective. But the way that you can find interesting stories to tell is microfocus, which is, incidentally, what I will be speaking about on the 3rd of August in the Content is King, but not if it's cuck talk.
And beyond.
And forever, as long as somebody lets me talk, I'll talk. Microfocus means you look for the smallest possible element of the thing that resonates with the largest number of people.
Aha.
So I'm going to give this example just because I love it. A couple of years ago, I was working with Jacaranda FM, which is a regional radio station. Shout out to Jacaranda FM, love them so much. And I was writing radio commercials. And one of the commercials I had to write was for a tick and flea product. Brand new, it's called Brevecto. It's still out there, but this is in the launch phase of Brevecto. And to come up for a concept for a radio commercial is an extremely hard thing to do because you've only got 30 seconds and it's theatre of the mind, right? So microfocus, we shrunk it down to the most basic thing, which was an itchy dog, a dog with an itch. And then we realized that by microfocusing on the dog and his itch, we could anthropomorphize him. We made him talk. And so the commercial is the dog, Rex, talking to his owners and scratching like crazy. And all you can hear is this dog scratching and moaning about being itchy and go out and get me some Brevecto. That's microfocus.
Got you.
It's the smallest possible.
That piece of wisdom is so on point. I think with these things also, where these types of interviews don't even, although this is great, where it doesn't even do it justice, is that these concepts take a little bit of time to unwind to people, right? And that's why people have to be willing to put the time, the effort, and the work in to attend these types of things, to understand the thinking and the mindset, all of that. So that's your close-up over there. And what I want to do is I want to leave you with a opportunity to leave people with a parting thought / call to action. And how do people get hold of you?
So Google me. But don't do what my husband did when we were about to go on a blind date and misspell my surname. Because that's what he did and he couldn't find me. And then he was like, you're supposed to be this writer, but I Googled you and there was nothing. It's because he spelled my surname Mark Ham and it's Mark Man, Tiffanymarkman, and you'll find all the social media stuff you could possibly want to consume and some that you will not want to consume. Be there if you can. If you're in Joburg on the 3rd of August, you should get that seat while we still have seats. And come and listen to me talk about this for an hour. There will be swearing and wine, cash bar and food. But if you're not in Joburg or you just want more stuff, then you should bear in mind that this stuff is not rocket science and that it's quick and easy to teach. And so you need to read stuff online, mine, other people's. You need to watch videos online, mine and other people's. You need to consume the latest quality content marketing from people like me and others. And that's where you'll find stuff that really works.
Yeah, I love that. Tiff, again, I've learned so much from you over the time. We've known each other for a long time. I learned from you before, but now I've had close proximity to you. And whether people are watching this before or after the talk, I don't want to time sensitize the video because there's a lot of value in this, whether they are watching this before or after 3 August. But I really do want to thank you for all the learnings. And you know, our offices sit right next to each other, so we often pop into each other's offices.
Also, I can hear you when your door is closed.
Yes, no, I
I
was born with this foghorn.
Should probably confess now that I can hear everything you say when you're on the phone.
No, I'm very
even when you talk about me.
I'm very open about it, and the rash and everything. You know, like no, I'm kidding. So thank you so much for being here. What I want to do with this is definitely have more regular conversations over time, so that we can build up to helping people understand these things in detail and not just give them the snippet. This is what I love about this format, is that you can make it long form, and it even acts as a filter for the people who are like, I only want the 10 seconds. Well, if you don't want to do the work, then you won't get the value. Don't watch the 30 minutes, watch the 2 minutes, and good luck to that.
You can get some value in 2 minutes, but it's only 2 minutes worth of value.
Yes.
If you want change, you need about 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
And if you want measurable change, you need to be at a talk for an hour at the Tryst.
And continuously upgrading after. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and your learnings, and I cannot wait until the next session.
I'll see you
Yeah,
back at our office in like 2 seconds.
I'll see you there in 2 minutes.